enjoying it. I've got a little bit of metaphorical and literal housekeeping today. Just wanted to let y'all know that the Airbnb is now also listed on VRBO. So for those of you who might, prefer VRBO for one reason or another, maybe you have a gift card, something like that, you can now do so to book our house. So I'll drop the link in the description below, as well as the link to the Airbnb. We've been working here this week some, doing just little projects. We had 2 or 3 days between renters, which was actually really nice and much needed because we had a few projects that we needed to take care of. So otherwise, it's been going really well. We're starting to get booked up, which we're really happy to see. We've gotten to meet a few of y'all, which has been an absolute joy. And overall, we've been very lucky and fortunate to not really have any problems yet. I gotta take a swim break. I got asked a really good question the other day, which was what kinds of routine maintenance do you have to do on a floating cabin? Keeping the wood on your house stained or painted or, sealed, and making sure that your flotation is sound, because when your dock starts becoming uneven, it's going to get really warped and eventually it'll dip into the water and then it's going to rot. And speaking of rotting, we've got a friend who's got a floating cabin down the lake who is working on fixing it up. They kind of bought it as a little bit of a project. The interior looks great, but the outside, and the floats, they knew it needed some work. So we're gonna go help them out and show you guys a little bit of what it looks like to start renovating one of these, because the majority of the houseboats or floating cabins that you will find on this lake, or really any TVA owned lake, honestly are probably not going to be in great condition. So if you buy one, you're going to need to do some work to it. We didn't really film a lot of our renovation. Of course, you guys have seen our build, but that's totally different than a renovation where you have to undo a lot of things before you can start doing. So this week we're going to be talking a little bit about that, as well as some of the legalities and permits and location, where you can put your house, where you can't, just a lot of those kind of logistical questions that we get a lot. I figured this would be a good time to touch on that as we show you guys a different harbor than you usually see here in our videos. But first, let me give you guys a little bit of geographical context. That's us in the United States in western North Carolina. We're nestled in the mountains just on the south side of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. You can see Fontana Lake is a very long lake with many fingers. There's about 239 miles of shoreline here. About 90% of that shoreline is protected land, so either national park or national forest. That's why you don't see any houses along the shoreline, and that's one of the many reasons that these floating cabins are popular. The lake itself is public and is owned by the Tennessee Valley Authority, or the TVA, a power company. And just a random fun fact, we've got the tallest dam east of the Rockies. If you've never been to Fontana Lake in person, then you may not know based on our videos that this harbor, which we live in, is actually only one of 5 and is by far the least populated of any harbor on the lake. We've got about 20 houseboats here, and there's something like 465 in total on the whole lake. We love this harbor because having fewer houseboats means a much greater distance between us and our neighbors. And as much as we love our neighbors, we also do love privacy. As the crow flies, this lake is over 30 miles long, so heading on down to the other end of the lake where the majority of the other harbors are does take quite a bit of time, and depending on the boat, quite a bit of gas. So it's not something we do often, but I still wanted to give you guys an idea of what some of these other harbors are like. Some have 4 or 5 dozen houseboats, and some have literally hundreds. This particular one is where we'll be going today to help out our friends. And as you can see, it's pretty extensive. And again, I feel like all this is worth mentioning, A, just to give you the lay of the land, but B, because the experience that we have in our harbor is not necessarily similar to the experience that other folks have in other harbors. Just like on land, things vary drastically between different neighborhoods. And keep in mind, all of this is just on Fontana. There's also 17 other reservoirs that allow these floating cabins and houseboats in the TVA system, totaling something like 2,000 to 3,000 floating properties in total. So with the impact that many houses could have on the waterways, you can imagine there's definitely a lot of regulations involved. TVA has a website that you can go to if you'd like to read about these regulations in depth.
Pretty much in a nutshell, these floating houses are all grandfathered in, so if you want to get one, build one, you need to find an old one to purchase first. The way we were able to rebuild is we bought the square footage from a floating house from somebody, and then we register with TVA, explain how we want to build. They've got perimeters they go by. You can't go so tall, you can't go so big. Then when you do that, then they'll accept it or deny it, and you work with them to get it right. And once you're done, you go to building. Each floating house is in a specific harbor on the lake, and if you buy one and want to move it to a different harbor, you have to get the permission from the guy that runs that one. You can't buy one on another lake and move it to, say, this lake. We get this same question over and over. People send us articles. They're like, oh, they're going to make you take them off the lake. And most people, I guess, they're not looking at the dates on these articles. So the Sunset Act, all floating cabins had 30 years to come off the lake. That was true until December 16, 2016, and the Wind Act was signed in place by Obama. And that Wind Act was a power-style infrastructure act that gave the boat owners, floating cabins owners, the rights to be on the lake, but it also gave the power entities that govern those lakes a little more power to make everybody, comply. So they're trying to clean them up so that it doesn't become such a trash issue everywhere, because this lake, I know in particular, there's a lot of, we have a lot of trash that we've pulled off of here that's come from these floating houses, which is both sides' fault. It was barrels floated these houses first, and then they said, oh, we don't want barrels, we want this styrofoam. So everybody put styrofoam. And then now they're saying we don't want styrofoam, we want encapsulated styrofoam. The way I see it, if they don't watch out over their boathouse and leave it sitting for 10 years, it winds up tearing apart. The styrofoam comes down the lake, and out of the 40,000 pounds of trash we pulled out in 5 years of this lake, I'd say a good 2/3 of that are styrofoam. So it's a huge issue. And guys, this cleanup we do, it happens every November, first weekend, full weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in November. We're getting around 40 to 50,000 pounds of trash a year out of the lake. And this year the goal is to try to get with the Park Service and split this cleanup up and do 2 sides of the lake. Just get a lot more trash in a lot less time. That's what we're going for. So I'm sure Sarah will put something up right here or here or here about where this trash cleanup takes place. But yeah, we'd love to have some help. We have a lot of people that come do it that's never even seen this lake, but they're like, oh, trash cleanup, we want to go. Apparently that's a thing. Those people, I commend them. They just want to be part of an event that's helping Mother Nature out. That's some pretty stuff out there to have all that trash on it. One day we'll get to the end of it and we won't have any more trash problems.
I also want to jump in and brag on Brandon for a second, because I don't think he's about to brag on himself, but Brandon actually just this past week won the 2023 Public Lands Conservationist of the Year, an award given out by NC Wildlife.
The award had such a big word in the title, I had to Google it to see what the heck it was.
They're really recognizing his work with the cleanup. I don't think he mentioned he's the one that founded and directs that cleanup every year. Single-handedly, really. And
I'm pretty sure nobody else did anything last year, so somehow they gave me this dang award. It has nothing to do with any of it.
He's being modest. He just has made a huge difference on this lake. Everybody that comes here can see it.
Brandon Jones, the manager of Fontana Marina, put all that together and developed this big cleanup. And you can go 10 miles up the lake now and not see any trash, so that's what it's all about.
It's a huge difference, you can tell.
He also started this houseboat septic pump out program where he gets a grant written to help make those pump outs cheaper so that people are encouraged to not dump in the lake. But anyways, good job, baby. You're doing great. All right, to our friend's house we go.
We're fixing the person's boat that we know.
There's the person, we know her.
Our flouse.
They're Flouse, yes. These are our friends Eric and Victoria. There's Eric. There he is.
Hey, don't do this without good batteries and Brandon and Sarah.
That's right. And Iko.
Can't do it without Iko.
So what's the game plan?
Well, we put stands in the back here, metal plates, beat up all the wood, and that way the back anchors, when we tie them up, will hold. We pulled all these fascia boards off here, and if you look right there, we got a problem area.
Yes.
So we're about to put a lift float under it and pick that area up and put new wood back in there and try to make it somewhat good.
So basically the end goal of all of this, besides just in general fixing it up, is to get them moved into our harbor. So they needed a little bit of more structural integrity before this thing was ready to drag down the lake, because floating cabins are not the same thing as houseboats, and they're not made to be mobile. They're not made to navigate. So it's kind of an endeavor to get these to move, and you got to make sure that they're nice and strong.
They said, buy a floating house.
Buy a floating house.
It'll be fun, they
Fun.
said. Everybody thinks that it's Mai Tais and umbrellas, as Brandon says. So this is what we call a lift float. It's filled with air as opposed to styrofoam encapsulated like most of these are filled with. And the purpose of a lift float is that you can get it underneath these encapsulated styrofoam ones while it's still in the water. So as you can see, we've got a big old dip in this dock right here that lift float is gonna have to go under. So how we accomplish that is that you let some of the air out of these. That way you can slide it back under, and then you use an air compressor to pump it back up to lift it up where there's a bow in the dock. If that makes sense? It's like a boat lift in a slip. This is a Brandon Jones hack. Tie a water bottle to the air hose. That'll make it float up to the top. And then when you turn your air compressor on, that's what can pump the float back up. Work smarter, not harder. Another hack we figured out is that anytime you're working in the water on a house, it helps to wear your life jacket like a diaper instead of the right way, because it sits you higher up in the water so you've got your hands free. Alright, so we've just gotten it in here. Nice and good. And right here is where it was sloping all through there, so we got the air compressor going. The tube's up in there, and it's slowly picking up the dock. You can see on this one, somebody has stacked rocks on top of this float to try and inch this edge of the dock down to make that less bowed. But, I mean, that might have worked for a little bit, but eventually that just warps it even more. This is definitely a better long-term solution.
How fast. Look how much it's come up already.
I mean, every second you can actually see it getting...
And see what they did? So they had an original deck.
Yeah.
And instead of replacing the deck, they built on top of it.
They double-decked it.
So...
Which they probably thought that was even more hardy, but actually that's just going to make the wood underneath rot.
Because it can't breathe.
It can't breathe, exactly. Yeah, that's another big no-no. This is so cute. They've got a little mother-in-law suite next to the main house. Hasn't been finished out, so we're kind of just brainstorming what it could be. I think that's exciting. I mean, you really have the potential to make it anything that you want to make it. It could be sleeping quarters for guests and whatnot. You can make it storage.
I think if we did the storage back here, because it has a door,
Yeah.
and then open this up for sleep, and this all be storage back there, I feel like this is plenty of room.
Yeah.
And then the outdoor kitchen, we built
I
already.
love that idea.
And it's not here, but we built,
Over here?
this has a bar now that comes out to about right here.
Yeah.
And then we've got the legs, and there'll be bar stools. And then this, we're gonna keep it an 8-foot like steel table with a blackstone, and then we're gonna put shelving up. And
That
then
will be so fun in the summer.
I think we're gonna put a drink.
Because it gets
cooler.
so hot inside when
Yeah.
you're cooking sometimes.
A
Awesome
drink cooler
idea.
out here. And so We kind of use this as a template.
It is so cute. I really love the interior of this.
I'm looking forward to it. We're changing out a few things.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
And you don't know this actually, but this house was some inspiration for our house.
Oh, really?
Of the layout, because if you think about it, this is laid out very similarly to ours. Like ours also has the living room and kitchen, open concept in the front, bedroom and bathroom, and then guest quarters up top or whatever. Because I love the way this was laid out. I felt like it was a very good use of space.
It feels really big, and like
it does.
And then you guys actually inspired us. I haven't told Eric this yet. But I'm gonna put a wood beam across.
Ooh, yes.
Wouldn't that be nice?
You could do a faux beam, a fox beam.
Yep, exactly.
69 1/8. All right, make that piece. Yes, sir.
Yes, Drill Sergeant.
Hold on, let old man get horizontal. I'm on the money. What about you?
Oh, I think we can hammer that in. Hold on.
I'm glad I got my damn Technic shot.
I got mine on our first date. I really did. Get it out of there. Rotten, all of it.
All of it. It's junk. It's rotten junk.
That's what you get for double decking.
Like, who the hell come up with that?
I don't know.
There's a lot of air down there. Everybody in the club getting tipsy. Hey,
What?
what's your name?
My name is Dumb.
Don't put that in the video.
My favorite things to put in the videos are the things where he's like, don't put that in the video. You know, Eric was saying earlier, like, oh, don't make us look stupid for buying a place that needs this much work. But no, that's the smartest thing you can do. The best bang for your buck is getting a fixer-upper and being willing to either put in the elbow grease or write checks to somebody who is willing to put in the elbow grease and fix them up. And it's also a win-win because it keeps the houses from, you know, chunking off and trashing the lake too, which is no bueno. It ends up in our trash cleanup. So, we like seeing this.
Is it raining under there? Got it! Like it was meant to be like this. I don't think I've ever done carpentry with a guy in his underwear and his wife.
Oh, that is so nasty. Tell them how they get in there, baby.
Otters.
They store their fish in your floats. It's very nasty. It stinks to high heaven.
Does it stink?
No, but when they do, oh, look, there's another one. Ew. We're getting rained out here, but we're starting to get to a good stopping point for today where we've gotten rid of most of this rotting wood and have gotten the deck evened out a little bit with the lift float. Outside of all the rules and regulations, one of the most important things that can be stressed about these floating cabins is that if you're ever lucky enough to acquire one, you better be ready to work. And I guarantee you, if you ask any cabin cruiser or sailboat liveaboard, they'll tell you the exact same thing. Life on the water, at least the way we're doing it, may be super cheap, but that's because it's not really bought, it's earned. But not one drop of that blood, sweat, or tears has ever gone to waste, because just as Mother Nature relentlessly takes away, she also endlessly gives back. And when you tip the scales and give a little back to her too, well, you might just end up gaining more than you ever imagined. We feel wildly fortunate to live in this beautiful corner of the world, and to have y'all here along for the ride with us this week. Feel free to subscribe to our channel to keep afloat with us again next Friday.